Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we're diving into a really fascinating breakdown of workplace dynamics. Specifically, we're looking at the two exact types of engineers that exist in, well, pretty much every single company. But we're not just going to point them out. More importantly, we're going to unpack exactly how you can make absolutely sure you are the invaluable one. Whether you're just starting out or you're seasoned pro, the distinction we're about to explore is literally the single biggest factor in how your colleagues and your managers perceive your value. So let's just jump right in. Let's look straight at this dichotomy. On one hand, you've got the passive engineer. This is the person who points out a fire and says, this is broken. I'm not sure why. Can someone take a look? And then they just wait, right? They wait for someone else to step in and fix it. Contrast that with the active engineer. This person shows up and says, hey, this was broken. Here's what I found, and here's what I did about it. Notice the difference in language there? The first one just stops at the problem. The second one, they take complete ownership, investigate it, and bring forward actual findings and actions. It's a completely different way of operating.
Now put yourself in a manager's shoes for just a second. Imagine you've got these two people on your team. One person continuously brings you problems and waits for you to sort them out. The other consistently shows up with what they figured out entirely on their own. So ask yourself, who do you trust with the next hard thing? Like when a really critical new project comes down the pipeline, who gets it? Who instantly pops into your head when a promotion opens up? The answer's pretty obvious, right? It's the person who actively solves things, for sure, not the person who just reports them.
As the source for today's explainer notes about their own early career, they lived on that active side, and they realized a really crucial truth. Taking ownership of problems is the true builder of a professional reputation. It's the thing that actually built my reputation, not my job title. A title is just a string of words on a resume. Your real reputation is built entirely on how you respond when things go wrong. Do you freeze and ask for help, or do you dig in? And the stakes here are incredibly real. The author, who now actually makes hiring and firing decisions, sees this crystal clear. Companies hold on to skilled, motivated problem solvers incredibly tightly, even when budgets shrink. But man, when it's time to cut headcount, those passive engineers, the ones who only ever showed up with problems, with absolutely zero context, no attempt to fix it, no, hey, here's what I tried, those people are the very first names on the layoff list. Your approach to problem solving is quite literally a matter of job security.
So the million-dollar question is, how do you actually transition from that passive path to the invaluable path? If you find yourself kind of leaning towards just reporting a bug and moving on, how do you change that habit? Well, according to the source, there are exactly two things you need to master. And I want to be totally clear right up front. Neither of them is a shortcut. It takes some deliberate effort.
Requirement 1. The mindset shift. This shift is all about changing how you behave in those critical moments right before you hand a problem off to someone else. Before you ask anyone for help, you've got to spend real, focused time with the problem yourself. Step 1, read the logs, and yes, even those seemingly endless error traces. Step 2, try to reproduce the bug yourself. Step 3, check the last few commits to see what recently changed. Even if you don't ultimately solve the problem, you absolutely need to show up with what you've ruled out instead of just declaring that something is broken. That single habit alone puts you ahead of most of the room, because honestly, most people just skip straight to asking. By doing these steps, you're doing the heavy mental lifting yourself. Requirement 2, the actual skills. Because, mindset alone just isn't enough. We need to talk about actual skills. And this is exactly where most people get it completely wrong when trying to level up their careers. Rote memorization, like knowing every single Kubernetes command or Docker flag off the top of your head, that is not what makes you a problem solver. That's just syntax. True skill is about systemic understanding. It's about knowing how all the pieces of the puzzle connect and deeply understanding what specific problems a tool actually solves. To truly grasp this big picture, you need to be able to investigate systemic questions. For example, why does a container that runs perfectly fine on your local machine suddenly fail the second it gets pushed to the cluster? If you just memorize Docker flags, you won't even know where to look. But if you actually understand the underlying architecture, you can start tracking down that discrepancy. And this need for systemic understanding builds directly into grasping downstream effects. You really have to force yourself to question how a seemingly isolated change, like a minor tweak in your build step, somehow ripples outward and drastically affects something totally different, like your overall deployment time. Everything is connected. This next point brilliantly illustrates the ultimate test of systemic thinking. Why does a networking issue sometimes completely masquerade as an application bug? You can only catch interconnected, deceptive issues like this when you understand the whole chain, not just your specific narrow slice of it. You have to be able to zoom out. So how do you actually get that deep level of understanding? Well, it definitely doesn't come from watching shallow step-by-step tutorials where everything just goes perfectly right. It comes from the gritty, frustrating 2 a.m. coffee experience of building something real, watching it break in spectacular fashion, and then stubbornly figuring out why it broke. Honestly, it doesn't matter where you get that experience. What really matters is that wherever you are learning, you are consistently chasing that big picture understanding. From a management perspective, the ultimate takeaway is right here. Managers don't remember who opened the ticket. They remember who figured out why it kept happening and made it stop. Your ultimate value to a company lies in the final resolution of a recurring issue. I mean, identifying that a problem exists, that's easy. Anyone can pull a fire alarm. But putting the fire out so it never sparks again, that is exactly what makes you indispensable. So, how can you start building this rock-solid reputation today? Start small. The author recommends a very specific, highly actionable tactic: the 15-minute rule. The very next time something breaks in your workflow, commit to spending exactly 15 minutes trying to understand it on your own before you ping a coworker or ask for help. Just 15 minutes. Read the logs, try to reproduce it, look at the recent changes. You're going to be genuinely surprised by how often that 15 minutes of focused effort is enough to solve the whole shebang completely. I want to leave you with this final thought to really chew on for your own career path, and it's something you can apply the second you get back to work. Are you spending 15 minutes to become invaluable, or are you skipping straight to asking for help? Will you put in those gritty, frustrating 15 minutes to become the indispensable problem solver, or will you remain the engineer who just points at broken pieces and waits? The choice is entirely up to you, but the results of that choice will absolutely define your career. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.